back to the past to play the shitty
Monday Night Raw.
Suck ass. He'd rather have a buffalo take a diarrhea dump in his ear. He'd rather eat the rotten asshole of a roadkill skunk and down it with beer. He's the angriest
IWC.
you've ever heard. He's the angry
WWF.
nerd. He's the angry
TNA and Ring of Honor.
nerd. He's the angry
Wrestling.
nerd.
You know, they booked him into oblivion. He's part of the whole social outcast thing. He's a non-player in the company. You know, and it doesn't affect them in any way, shape, or form if they keep him or if they fire him. Although if they keep him, like I said, it's just an added headache for them. So, like I said, there's got to be some kind of reason why they didn't cut him loose right away. It's going to happen at some point. And it's a shame. You know, I remember that ESPN special when it aired a year ago, and I was one of the more vocal people arguing, what? You know, they got to capitalize on this. Do something with this guy. He was doing the Adam Rose thing, and that had kind of dried up, or it wasn't really going anywhere. And they have this special where they take you behind the curtain, and they take you into the world of what it's like to, you know, work for NXT. I guess that's really what it was. He was trying to get the character over in NXT. But they showed him in his home with his wife and his son, and, you know, he speaks, you know, when he speaks out of character, he doesn't have the accent. He sounds like a completely different person. He's not, you know, Adam Rose. He's Ray Lapon. And I just said to myself, there had to be a reason why WWE said, okay, we want this guy to be featured. I don't think it was ESPN that made the decision. I'm sure it was WWE that said, hey, we'll pick this guy. This guy's got a compelling story, and we'll have him featured in this ESPN piece. And then it airs, and you don't do anything with the guy. I mean, to me, I look at that and I say, a situation like that, you got to be ready to take advantage of that. I'm coming up with all these ideas and getting behind this guy and giving him this quarter on the show and maybe even 2 segments on the show. But that doesn't mean you can't at least try to come up with something and see if it sticks. And if it takes off, then you know what? You may have a new star in your hands. You know, no harm, no foul. Otherwise, the guy's he's not doing anything. You may as well try. This was just a reason for them to try. I would have said the same thing if it was Damian Sandow, if it was Tyler Breeze, if it was anybody else in that position. You're featured in this ESPN piece. You get people to, like, rally behind you. It was just stupid for them to squander that. You know, the guy's maybe not going to be headlining against Roman Reigns or Brock Lesnar, but, you know, he could have been a player. Dolph Ziggler. Dolph Ziggler is a player. Not much of one lately, but still, he's at least high enough on the food chain where, you know, he can make a difference. They've got him now with Baron Corbin, and I'm sure the reason for that is they feel, you know, Dolph's a great opponent for Baron Corbin, and he can give him great matches and make him look great, and, you know, it's great, right? At least he serves a purpose. A guy like an Adam Rose at this point, he doesn't serve any purpose. Bo Dallas, he doesn't serve any purpose. They're expendable. And maybe it goes back to the Ryback thing, where they make you expendable because they choose not to do anything with you, and of course then your value goes down. You become expendable, so the next round of cuts, maybe the axe falls on you, and now you're gone, and you're out of a job. And, you know, it sucks for them. But I just couldn't understand, you know, this guy gets that kind of mainstream media exposure. How are you not ready to just jump all over that and capitalize on that and just try to do something? I mean, look, if it fails, it fails. You gave the guy a shot. You can put him in the list of one of many who had a shot. There was an opening in there maybe to do something, and they just were too slow, or they just didn't take advantage of it.
I don't know about you, but doesn't it feel like your IQ is just leaking out of your head after listening to all of that? Before ever listening to the Nitpicker's latest podcast this week, I immediately assumed that Adam Rose would be the top story he would talk about, and after that, he's talked once again about the ESPN special, which has very little to do with the product at all, and after that, poor talent getting fucked over. So how exactly do you take a domestic abuse story and turn it into the cliché, WWE ruined talent X argument? Not like I really needed to listen to this week's podcast in the first place, consider he says the same things every week. But anyway, first of all, why should the guy get a push just because he was featured in an ESPN show? They all had interesting stories. Xavier Woods is training to be a doctor. Corey Graves had a career-ending concussion. Those are stories that viewers would like to hear about, not typical stories like the usual indie wrestler or football player. The point of that feature on ESPN wasn't to push Adam Rose, but to tell his story. Say that a low-end ESPN anchor that only does a college football show on ESPN News or something. Eventually, people find out he's gay or I don't know, and they do a feature on him. Does that mean he's going to call the 11 p.m. Sports Center from now on? People have to prove they can be assets to the company before WWE can invest so much time and money on them. Again, no dig at Sando, but he was never over until he started impersonating other characters. And if anything, The Miz is getting the credit. Ray Lapon's career is over. He got to be on the main roster for 2 years, and he's lucky to even have that while thousands of indie wrestlers spend decades in wrestling rings in New York and Florida and never get that opportunity. Who are you to say how poorly he's been treated? Well, I didn't have to listen to much more to find another gripe of his. Here's his take on WWE letting go of the Brooklyn Brawler.
So that's I think pretty much the end of Adam Rose. It's also the end of an era. The Brooklyn Brawler was quietly released. So quietly, I don't think they ever made mention of this on WWE.com. And, I get that he's not an active performer. If he was an active performer, I assume they would have mentioned something. But still, he was a long time part of the company. He was a performer at one point. Not even worth a mention. They just let him go. After more than 30 years with the WWE, the Brawler is no more. 1983 is when he first debuted for WWF. Is nothing sacred anymore? I guess I pretty much knew the answer to that after they released, what was his name, Mark Yeaton? Remember him? He was the timekeeper. Actually, he's probably more famous as the guy who would toss beers to Stone Cold at ringside. He had impeccable aim. He also spent 30 years with the company. And then they cut him with no explanation. I remember his wife went on Twitter on like a Twitter rant. I don't remember if she took down the tweets or not, but, just 30 years, no explanation, boom, you're gone. We don't need you anymore.
Now you're complaining about the man who has been with the company for 30 years being laid off? The Brooklyn Brawler is probably set for life after being in WWE for so long. Why does he need to be there still? Why does he still need to earn more money? Which leads me into this. Listen to the Solomonster Sounds Off episode 412.
I hope the minute that Vince is out of the picture, Triple H boots his ass on out of there. Because I think at this point, he's one of those people that's probably doing more harm than good. It's probably a lot of older guys behind the scenes and Vince's right-hand men and all that kind of stuff who probably also need to get the boot, quite frankly. I think they need to start fresh. And they could start with Kevin Dunn.
So it's completely fine for Kevin Dunn to lose his job, but not the Brooklyn Brawler? I get it. People don't like Kevin Dunn for whatever reason, but at least be consistent with your beliefs on old employees. You want Kevin Dunn let go, yet you don't like when the Brooklyn Brawler's departure is never mentioned. You want Kevin Dunn to go, yet you want WWE to go back to a small venue from 1993 and sets from 2002. So yeah, you're a hypocrite. Not like that's something you would be ashamed of.
So all of a sudden my mind starts to think, hey, Howard Finkel's in the back, and I don't know what he's up to these days, but that starts to get me thinking there. And I think if they did that, okay, if they end up cutting the Fink, we all gotta storm Titan Tower, because we ain't gonna stand for that. That's stepping over the line here. Triple H boots his ass on out of there.
See what I mean? Well, there is another clip that I wanted to play from Review Tech USA. Recently, he discussed a news story about a pastor telling women to destroy their boyfriends' and husbands' video game consoles. There's something that he said about these talking heads that will say whatever they want and huge amounts of people will believe them, and I believe that this fits Solomonster to a T with what I've been talking about. He said it better than I ever could, and I'm a writer. So, here you go.
What scares me about guys like this beyond gaming, and it's true for people in positions of power across the board, is that they can make up their own rules. They can make up their own facts, which are bullshit. They aren't facts, even though there's things to prove them wrong. and people gobble up what they say and listen to them. Whether it be politicians, whether it be pastors, whether it be priests, whether it be presidents, dictators, prime ministers. If the person has the right charisma, you can make them swallow anything you're trying to verbally feed to them. And that scares the shit out of me. And he's going to have a whole bunch of people now thinking that video games are the devil, and Jesus does not want you to play video games. Every time you pick up your controller and play Halo, Jesus is crying. And we all know that's the biggest load of bullshit that we've ever heard.
Please, Solomonster, let me be on your show. Give yourself the chance to prove me wrong and shut me up for good. So there we have it for this week's episode. Stay tuned for even more in the coming weeks.